Hello and welcome to the third video in Proximity's Guide to Advanced Berserking. This series is going to cover strategies and tips on handling each of TERA's classes, while at the same time showing that Berserkers are able to hold their own in 1v1 combat. Today's video is going to provide insight for Berserkers versus Sorcerers. This first clip shows about what you can expect from an average fight against a Sorcerer, with the Berserker unable to catch up. While this sounds bad, all it really means is that it's going to be a long fight instead. The Sorcerer is barely avoiding my attacks while struggling to keep distance, and at the same time is really doing nothing substantial to my health bar. With as many attacks as I'm missing by the smallest of margins, whether I'm out of reach or misaiming, this fight could have ended a lot sooner. However, the Sorcerer really has no chance. Like the Berserker, many of their attacks are predictable but are tied to cast times instead of charge bars. What this means is that Sorcerers are even easier to predict and avoid, and with decent reflexes for blocking and a few evasive maneuvers, almost all of the Sorcerer's arsenal is mitigated. Keep in mind, however, that for these fights, and really all fights against kiters, move speed is crucial. Your enemy will have to run more and hurt you less the faster you are. One other thing you may notice in this fight is the constant use of double hits. A double hit is when you lead with a combo attack, instantly block after it lands, and start a second combo attack immediately. The benefits of this maneuver are twofold. It earns you mana per second faster than two normal combo attacks, and also causes staggers much faster, preventing an enemy from escaping after the first hit. Having not fought an extremely large number of Sorcerers, I'm not familiar enough with their escape capabilities at this point, and you can tell that fairly easily, I think, as I flail wildly around the battlefield. Despite this, most of the damage I take is from chips, overcharges, and mana sacrifices. In long fights like this, having mana regen and health regen crystals is extremely important. Having done the math on the difference between flat HP and HP per 5 regen crystals, if a fight lasts longer than 75 seconds, a health regen crystal will be superior. Essentially, this means that in fights against kite classes like Sorcerers, health regen is the way to go. It is fights like these where having 4 crystal slots really makes a difference, and I'd go so far as to say that the extra slot is the primary reason behind the power of superior items. An extra crystal slot for a weapon allows a PvP Berserker to take extra crit damage, and an extra armor slot allows him to take more regen to offset overcharge damage. Using dash more wisely in this fight would have certainly helped me. I'd suggest saving it until after a successful avoidance of Glacial Retreat's snare component, so the Sorcerer doesn't have a reliable snare to use to counteract the effects of dash. All in all, better predictions of when a Sorcerer is going to use his escapes is key to catching them. In the end, I managed to land a big hit on the Sorcerer and would have easily finished the duel with a win if it hadn't ended prematurely. Here's an example of the double hit I mentioned earlier. If you watch closely, you can see my block go on cooldown and my second attack flies much earlier than normal. It's tricky to do, but practicing this until it's second nature is a good habit to have. If you can do it perfectly, it will even maintain the place in the combo, rather than using 2 weak first hits. One of the most important things to learn to do against Sorcerers, however, is to execute a damage trade. This is a risky maneuver, but can result in a sure hit if timed properly. Knowing Sorcerers have to stop to cast spells, if I'm close enough I go for a hit regardless and swing while his flaming barrage is in mid-flight. This relies on mistakes being made by the Sorcerer, but essentially ends the fight when it happens. After a trade like that, I can afford to either rely on chip damage or take more unfavorable trades later. I'm not sure about whether Sorcerer's attacks can reliably stagger, but it's a good idea to release attacks earlier anyway. Here I try to trade with a Void Pulse because of my extreme advantage, but screw it up by holding onto my attack too long. Regardless of that, it's a simple matter to chip the Sorcerer down the rest of the way. While the previous fight introduced the idea of trading hits, this one shows how to utilize it effectively. Unfortunately, during this point in the beta, my game was having problems with spell effects, so I had to rely on character animations alone to respond to my opponent. Much of your decision on how to react to opportunities to trade hits depends on where you can reach while your opponent is still trapped in a spell animation. I can't get close enough to circle around, so I trade with the Void Pulse. Here, however, the Sorcerer is closer, so I avoid the spell to retaliate instead. Knowing when you want to trade, dodge and retaliate, or pull your attack to save your skin takes practice, but it's crucial to learn. Due to impending release, this series is done for now. However, I fully plan on rebooting it at level 60, so keep an eye out for more in the future. Thanks for watching.